Good afternoon. Welcome to Cole Camp Tough TV. My name is Ryan Johns, and today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Serena Starcher, Superintendent of Raleigh County Schools. Dr. Starcher, thank you for taking your time out of your day to be here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
If it's all right with you, we'll just go ahead and get right started.
Okay.
All right. How long have you known what career you wanted to pursue?
Well, I recall fourth grade. I wanted to be a teacher. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to teach math, but I'll be honest, everyone seemed to tell me I was too smart to be a teacher. Which now, looking back on that, I don't agree with that at all. You're never too smart to be a teacher, but I listened to everyone else, and I thought about being a pediatrician because I love kids. So I thought about being a pediatrician. Then I thought about being an engineer. Anything that involved math and science, I really liked that. But eventually, as I entered my second year of college, I said, I'm going to be a teacher. So it took me all that time to get back to what I originally wanted to do. But as I entered my second year of college, I knew education was the field I wanted to pursue.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you describe for us what it's like to be superintendent?
It's a great honor to be superintendent. Some days, all days are great. Some days you face a little more adversity, perhaps. So sometimes the weight is a little heavier. If you may recall, students may recall, a couple of weeks ago we were dealing with a number of threats around the state.
Yes.
So when things like that are happening, the burden's a little heavier, if that makes sense, or the weight's a little heavier, because ultimately our primary goal is to ensure the safety of our students and staff. We have to do that before we can learn. So in those periods of time, it's a little bit of a weight. But the day-to-day work of just being able to interact with students, like yesterday, we had a group of students at the office and met with them for a few hours. It was amazing. So anytime we get to work with our students or our staff doing great things, it's just wonderful. So it's a true honor and joy to be superintendent.
I'm glad to hear that. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of your career?
Of my entire career?
Of your career as superintendent.
As superintendent. The impact we can make, or I can make, on students' lives. I said earlier,
Yes.
I've loved children. I wanted to be a teacher, then I thought maybe a pediatrician. Now I can affect more than 10,000 students' lives each day with the work that I do. So it might not be direct, but through the work, I'm able to affect many children's lives each year. So it's that.
That's fantastic. What is one aspect of your career that you dislike or that you would like to change?
Well, honestly, it would probably go back to the safety and security piece. It's a necessary evil, if you will. I mean, in today's day and time, that's the world we live in. But I remember when I went to school, and I'm not that old, but when I went to school, we didn't worry about that. We didn't have drills. We didn't practice for the unfortunate events that could happen. And I'm not saying they couldn't have happened back then, but they weren't as prevalent,
Right.
So that's probably the thing I like the least. I will add another one if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
So this year we started, myself and the director of secondary, whom you met yesterday, we started meeting with any student who wants to drop out of school. And my goal, or our goal, is that hopefully through our meeting we can point that student in, or make connections, point them in other directions, maybe keep them in school. And we've been able to keep a couple of students in school this year, but the remainder have dropped out. And I just see students passing up a wonderful opportunity to be able to earn a diploma and then go on, to the next phase.
No,
So
they're
that's
certainly doing
another part of
themselves a
my job.
disservice.
I just don't like that. I mean, it's not that I dislike meeting with the students, I dislike the piece of dropping out. So we are working hard as a school system to try to keep every student in school, to connect them to that one thing that'll keep them in school.
Well, thank you. That was a fantastic response. Going into this position as superintendent, did you have any specific goals for Raleigh County Schools that you'd like to see happen before the end of your term?
Well, certainly, two primary goals. Even the day of my interview for the position, in talking with the newspaper, I said, obviously, we always want to improve student outcomes. Test scores, attendance, graduation rate, we're not at 100%. So I'm a competitor at heart. I love to compete. So until we're at 100%, I want to keep going. So that was one of my goals, is just to improve outcomes for our students. But the other was to really improve or increase our community engagement. As I said back then, COVID allowed us or caused us to close doors. And we didn't want adults and people from the community in because, again, we were trying to keep our students and staff safe, this time safe from a disease or,
Right.
An illness, I'm sorry. But we hadn't really opened back up completely. So that was one large goal of mine, was to open us back up. So this year, all schools are holding at least 2 events to invite the parents and community in. I think Independence just held
We
one
recently
last
had one last Friday,
week.
to September 20th. Yes.
And I know Independence Middle had one a little earlier in the month as well. So we're doing that. We are, as I often say, we're a part of the community. We're not the community.
Right.
So we have to do our part to be a part of. And if that means we're going out to the community or we're opening our doors and bringing people in, I just think that's very important. So those were my 2 primary goals.
Well, I definitely think the community involvement is an absolutely beautiful idea. What are some of the most notable improvements that you've observed during your last year as superintendent?
Well, there are many. One, it actually went into effect this year. Whether you always eat school lunch, I'm sure all students don't eat school lunch every day or eat breakfast every day at school. This year, we were able to institute the community eligibility provision, which means all students across the county can eat for free. We've done that in the past for elementary students, but now our board has approved us to do that for both middle and high. So it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have, you can eat for free here in Raleigh County. So that's huge for students. Last year, the citizens of Raleigh County were gracious yet again to support an excess levy for the school system. That excess levy provides about $22.8 million per year to the school system, and that allows us to do the extras. It allows us to provide extra opportunities for students. It allows us to pay our teachers and staff a little more than the state provides. It allows us to provide benefits, facilities, and it's a very detailed excess levy. And like I said, it's $22.8 million per year. So that was a huge accomplishment last year, and it was a continuation, but it's still a continuation. I will also say we had a number of facility projects come to a close last year. We opened a new Stratton Elementary School. We completed significant renovations and additions at Shady Elementary. Independence Middle received an HVAC system for its gymnasium. That's one. There were others that I know it's here locally, and new roofs went on, one being at Coal City Elementary. Then there were other facility improvements, but we stay busy with facilities, again, largely in part to the support of our citizens here in Raleigh County. And then lastly, I would just say, academically, we did make strides. I do believe you recognize baby steps. We have, some of our schools have a longer road, if you will, or more growth that they need to demonstrate. But like Coal City, again, here next door, Coal City demonstrated improvement in reading, math, and science. That's huge to see that growth across all subjects. Beckley Stratton and Beckley Stratton Middle, and Beckley Elementary, they performed lower in the state, but they both saw tremendous gains last year. And other schools did too, like Marsh Fork Elementary. But I call upon those because, again, it can be baby steps. It may be larger improvement. It varies by school. But if you don't start, you can never get to that 100%. Right. So I'm really proud of that, and we'll keep working. But those are some. Did I say too many?
No, actually, you sort of covered my next question, because I was going to ask you if you were satisfied with the current state of the Raleigh County Schools test scores.
That's a delicate question and answer. What I will say is I'll never be satisfied until all students are proficient. So that's 100%. I'll never be satisfied. Like I said earlier, I'm a competitor by heart or at heart. But I will always recognize the improvements we're making, that our students and our staff are making. If we don't improve, if we always just say, well, we're just at this percentage proficient and we just can't, then we're never going to get where we need to go. So I will always recognize growth, but I'll always push to keep going as well. So satisfied that we made some improvement, but I want to keep going.
So there are definitely layers to that response.
Yes.
Could you talk a bit about how being superintendent has impacted your personal life in terms of a work-life balance, things of that nature?
It's a challenge. I mentioned, well, no, I don't think I did earlier. I thought of it. The cards. I don't know if any of you here received a card last year for perfect attendance or 4.0 GPA. But I would say, I don't have a count with me, but I would say I signed somewhere between 12 and 15,000 cards last year. And I'll do it all over again this year, but it takes a lot of time. And I don't do that at work. Like, I can't do that at work. There's a job, I have a job to do every day. So all those cards go home. So whether it's I'm setting up my son's ball games between the two halves, or I'm get there an hour early, so I'm signing, or I'm just signing at home. It's important to me. I think that just with this example, if we expect something, we need to recognize it when students or staff do it. So these cards are really important to me, but it takes a lot of time. So I am fortunate that I have a family that is good with the fact that I have to do some work at home. When my husband's out of town, sometimes we're eating takeout because there's just not enough time to cook dinner. But it works. It's important to me to do a great job as superintendent, and my family knows that about me.
Well, I applaud you for that. You're evidently an incredibly busy woman.
It's busy, but it's worth it.
What would you say is the most important thing a student should look for when choosing a career?
I would do what makes you happy. I mentioned earlier about trying to find something else that would make me happy outside of teaching, and I still came back to it in the end. I think it's critically important that you're happy doing what you want to do. And obviously, you want to have a career that you can support a family, with the income you make. I understand that, but you have to be happy. It's almost like you have to fulfill your purpose. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. That is the end of my list of questions. Do you have any final remarks for Raleigh County School students who might be watching?
Well, thank you for tuning in. I think this is a great program here at Independence High School, and I'm glad I could participate. I would say, like I mentioned earlier, about outcomes, improving outcomes. I know in our great country, every student is entitled to an education. It's a right. But as I tell the children at my home, it's a privilege to be able to be educated, because around the world, not everyone gets to have an education. So I encourage students to be present. You can't learn if you're not present. You can't really be involved. Just yesterday, we talked about how can we get more students involved in school? Is that through clubs or, what opportunities? So we want to really work across the county to support our schools in getting students involved. If you're involved, think you're going to want to come to school, not just for the academics in the classroom, but for the life that you can have at being a part of the school community.
Yes.
So I just encourage you to be present, obviously behave, and do your very best in class, but then take the opportunity to get involved.
Fantastic.